Hello, everyone. My name is Tiago. I'm associated with the Art University in Linz, more concretely, the Interface Cultures Department. My apologies for not being there with you all today. Unfortunately, I have to do this remote because of situations out of my control. I'm going to talk to you a bit about Archive, which is an AR experience, a sort of future-facing AR experience interface for interacting and exploring digital art archives. As an overview, so as I said, this is a mixed reality interface, also kind of a experience per se of a digital archive. In this case, it is meant to be for a digital archive of digital art, the ADA, which I guess most of you are by now quite familiar with. This is meant to be both a conceptual research tool, so a tool for researchers to explore an archive, but also for other people to, let's say, even play with it and discover new content. So there is a kind of ambivalence here, or the attempt to have the cake and eat it at the same time. It is a self-contained experience, or it's meant to be. So you could pop up an AR headset at your office or in your room or in your house, but also this could be shown at exhibitions and hopefully also used to complement the contents that are on display. So an exhibition or an actual archive with physical materials, if that would be the case. We started with a focus on one artist, or in this case, the artist duo, Christa Sommerer and Laurent Mignonneau, who have over 50 works over time. And there is already a traveling show present at the ZKM, which will be then traveling to other cities around the world. And so we try to direct a bit our efforts in order to have a functioning, let's say, prototype. It is effectively work in progress, so prototype or demo that can be experienced and played with at the exhibition venues. The project is very focused now on a HoloLens 2, which is a wearable AR device, so a headset, which you can see the real world through these clear, transparent visor, but also then projects on your eyes these very bright, colorful AR elements, which they call holograms. It tracks your hands, and it does also other things like eye tracking, which we're not currently using. For a bit of context here, this is being developed as part of a larger project called LIFO for short. Feel free to read the name in German. I translated here for you. It's about teaching and research infrastructure, let's say tools also for digital arts at universities, kindly funded by the Federal Ministry of Republic of Austria, where we were based, and in partnership with two other universities, the Donau-Universität Krems and the Universität für angewandte Kunst in Krems and Wien, respectively, also both in Austria. Thanks to our partners for the help and good feedback they have provided. Our role in this project, ours, Kunstuni Linz, role is twofold, or our main tasks are twofold. So one is the development of this exploratory AR interface, but we also contribute with materials for the archive of digital art. So we have someone or several people tasked with scanning, producing high quality scans and archiving materials related to the works of Christa and Laurent, printed materials like catalogs, articles, but also eventually transparent materials. Our focus in this paper naturally is the AR interface. In order to develop such a tool, there were some considerations we took into account. Types of data amounts, what can we get from a database, or what could we possibly get from the ADA, although we're not using ADA directly yet. But also thinking about a future-facing content types or things that are not so common. So common would be texts, images, videos. Less common would be 3D scans, spherical panoramas, and things like this. As I said, starting focus is on Christa and Laurent's works. Let's start short. That's already a lot of material in any case. Shall we do it AR or VR? AR or VR is this very old discussion. You can always say that soon, anytime soon, there will be, we are starting to see a bit of a merger of these two technologies or modes. I would say there are some advantages in VR, like having more control over the scene, over how things interact in the scene, because it's all, let's say, digital. So you as a designer, as a programmer, have a bit more control of how things behave. AR lets you be more present in the world, co-present, also interact with other people, be able to see at the same time virtual materials from the archive, but also things like your notes, your posters, and everything you have in your office or in your research space. But then we also have to manage the fact that you have no control over what might be in the space, over what the user might do with actual real objects. And of course, this can all be programmed or supplemented, but it depends on what kind of knowledge the hardware and the software gives you already about the space. The choice of device fell on the HoloLens 2. This is a very high-end device. It's not meant for, I would say, everyday users or mass market. It's a very enterprise device, or at least the business case they're trying to put it under or sell it under. This is a wearable. It's pretty comfortable, but in being a wearable, it does all the work itself. So it has, at this point, let's say, the processing or rendering power of a high-end smartphone of a couple of years ago. So there are limitations, naturally. We cannot show certain types of effects and visually breathtaking scenes as we do when we have a powerful PC rendering VR. It does have knowledge of the environment mesh, so it knows to a certain degree the geometry up to 3 or 4 meters away. So we can know where there are, let's say, walls or surfaces, which is pretty cool. And it does hand tracking. It tracks your hands quite well, but not as precisely. It's not as precise as a VR controller. And of course, then we also have to have attention to this. One of the things that are more peculiar in the visual design part is that the display, it's a see-through display, so you can see the whole world up to all your peripheral vision, but the part of the AR display is actually kind of limited. So the viewport would be something like kind of this in front of you. So you do, if you try to show a virtual object that's very, very big, and or a small one that's very up close, you do see it cut out at the edges, and this can become kind of distracting. Also, we cannot show dark shapes or very dark shapes because this is essentially light being projected over what you already see with your own eyes from the surrounding environment. So black objects are effectively invisible. For inspirations, we took a couple of works from Christa Sommerer and Laurent Mignonneau, or let me just focus on a few ones. These are kind of reactive rooms where the user is surrounded by media, words, and images. These spaces, they listen to you, listen to your conversation, and provide you this kind of stimulus or complement. I think it's an interesting idea of being immersed in your thoughts or having this kind of mind palace. And this sort of swirling chaos, if I can call it like this, which can be disorganized, but also a bit serendipitous, where something might show up that catches your eye and lets you follow the conversation, or lets you have some sort of insight you would not have with a ordered display. Luc Couchen's Naked in Paradise. So Luc is cataloging old materials, but also we're on his travels recording new voice clips and spherical panoramas and things like this, and then he displays it in VR in different ways. There's a timeline, there's a more, let's say, also chaotic, if I may say so, way of showing things. These are all laid out in space, and it's kind of funny to see that we ended up a little bit with something that looks kind of similar, but I guess that makes sense in any way. Database, digital archive will serve you a lot of 2D content for sure. Even if it hosted things like 3D models, most of the content by far now is 2D. This would be images, videos, and of course a lot of text. So how would we show this taking advantage of 3D physical space? And I think these two are pretty good clues. One is Geoffrey Shaw's Legible City, and the other is Type in Space, which is a HoloLens app. We had a lot of fun playing with. This shows how even text elements, let's say 2D elements, can also be used perhaps even creatively to construct architecture, and users can take the existing contents of an archive and just play with it as building blocks, like, let's say, Minecraft. And the overall design, there's also a lot of different kinds of inspirations, things like construction sets. So as I said, due to the display, it's a good idea to use bright colors, but also small modular elements versus big monolithic constructions. So we went with the playful approach and the bright colors and things that you could assemble yourself, or construction pieces that then we can use to assemble different views of the materials of the archive. And one of the most important ones down in the corner is these mind maps, especially on the detective movies, when you go in, the crazy detective that's been kicked out of the force, but he's still investigating the case, and the room is full of pictures and lines. Maybe not the best example of sanity, but as a spatial way of organizing an archive and showing relationships between objects. Okay. I'm told here that my internet connection might be a bit unstable. Apologies for that. They're using very limited resources here, but hopefully you can follow. We produced UX storyboards, which I will go through very quickly with actual examples. And you can see that some of these translated pretty well into the actual prototype. So the starting scene, which is, let's say, the home scene, we'll also call it the galaxy, shows this view of all the artworks as little planets or spheres with little shapes swirling around them. At the center in a ring, highlighted are 11 artworks. In this case, these are the same 11 artworks that are present at the exhibition in ZKM. So these works that are there are highlighted in the center, and everything else is spread out in also a kind of chaotic manner. There is no necessarily no organization here, and they are actually kind of randomized every time to provide a little bit of freshness and hopefully some serendipity. So the user can approach these items and touch one of them, and it opens up, it pops up into a swirl of media. I call this a swirl. It's a set of revolving media items, in this case, images, keywords, and videos that are related to the artwork. The swirl can be repositioned by holding a handle under the sphere that stays in the center. So you can grab the handle and move the swirl around horizontally to another position. Images and keywords and videos, so media items that are in the swirl, swirling around, can be picked up and removed from the swirl. And you can leave them lying around and make your compositions, let's say in mid-air if you want. But you can also bring these close to a surface, and there would be this dotted line that says, okay, if you release this image now, it will attach to the surface. So you can use basically anything that's at least more or less 5 by 5 centimeters that the HoloLens is able to detect. In your hand, there's a set of tools. This goes both for right hand or left hand. There's a set of tools. The biggest and most visible one is perhaps the cube. We also have a little menu with a home and a back button, much like a web browser, and a pin. The cube is a sort of inventory. It's a box where you can put things. You can pick up these media items from anywhere and store them in the box. It will shrink down and go in there. You can put a lot of them inside, and only the 5 last ones that you put, the 5 more recent ones, are visible. While in your hand, the box is relatively small. It's like this. You can look at it, but it's hard to pick up things from there. So you can pick the whole box up from your hand and drop it on the floor, and it enlarges. And then once it's this size, you can remove things from inside. You can also put them back in, but it's a little bit more easy to handle. The reason for the inventory is that you don't need to carry one by one these media items. If you're working in a big space or making a big composition, you can just put everything in a box and then bring the box somewhere, put it on the floor, and then attach these to the wall as you wish. The box could also serve other purposes in the future. The pin allows you to pin things. They don't necessarily stay in place, but it's a metaphor for creating lines between items. So you pick up a pin, bring it next to an image or word or video, attach it there, and then when you pick up another pin and you bring it close to an existing pin, it creates a line between those, and then in this way you can create connections between items, much like a mind map. just an overview of what the scene would look like at this point. So we have already in the wall a little mind map that was made. Things can then be moved and the lines stay there, so they don't disappear if I pick up a word and put it somewhere else. Keywords can also be expanded. So I grab a keyword with both hands, stretch it, and it pops up into a word cloud. Word clouds in 3D are really cool. We're usually seeing them on the screen, but when you actually feel the depth of the cloud, it's pretty interesting. Items on the cloud, much like in the swirl, can be picked up and then expanded again. So you can keep going into a cloud and another cloud and another cloud. It looks pretty dense here and hard to read because the words are overlapping each other. But believe me, when you see this in stereoscopic 3D, your brain has a very little problem distinguishing words from each other based on depth. So yeah. There's a lot of technical details about this. You can also ask me afterwards. This is all made in Unity using something called the toolkit, a mixed reality toolkit on Windows PC, made specifically for the HoloLens, but this could be ported to other platforms. It would take some work for sure, but it is possible. It runs on a small local database. We made up our own small database of materials from Christa and Laurent. These are stored on the device. The database itself is stored on the device, but all the media is used anywhere without a setup. As long as I have a connection to the server, I can just take the HoloLens, put it in my head, and start the app. So wherever I am, let's say there's a connection to the server, it would be fine. Doesn't any previous setup of the room. This is what it looks like when you're developing it on Unity. It's a lot of fun. It's currently being presented as part of the larger exhibition, The Artwork as a Living System, with 11 works from Christa and Laurent at the ZKM. And if you happen to pass by Linz during the Ars Electronica Festival, you would catch the same exhibition and be able to try it out by yourself and maybe see me around. Not sure how I'm on time, but I guess I should wrap this up now. So there's, of course, a lot of future work. Some things include, on a shorter term, providing a sort of tutorial, because this is a lot to learn in a very short time and a lot to explain. When you don't actually see what people are doing and seeing, it's kind of hard to explain to them if you don't know exactly what they see. Things for a longer term would be including more material from the ADA, eventually an actual connection to the ADA itself. And of course, other collections and data visualizations, hopefully still within this paradigm of expanding things and closing things. I think this is a good metaphor and it should be used a lot better. So I don't know exactly if I took that much time or not, but thanks for your patience. And if you have questions, you can ask me when there is time or write me an email.